Didn't get that quote for me because I will not be quoting a $10,000 condo policy. I promise you that.
Call the insurance broker.
There are options for that. Even Fair Plan, which is made for high fire areas, they offer condo policies too. So there's ways around those higher priced HO6 interior only.
Unfortunately, again, a lot of people are dealing with the rude awakening. We already have the inflation problem, high interest rates, high property tax. So this is not, exciting or anything like that, but you can at least get ahead of it. I would just say that pay attention to who you're getting quotes from. What is a captive agency versus what is an insurance broker?
And that's the other thing with working with a broker that versus a captive is if we see your renewal, comes in, we reshop every renewal. So 2-3 months before a policy is renewing, we're looking to make sure you're still in the best situation.
Hi, everybody. Jason Thibodeau here, your host, as always, with the Mortgage Lounge. I'm with my buddy, who also happens to be my insurance agent. Hi, MK.
Hey.
With Coastal Oak Insurance. She's an insurance broker, which is the preferred method right now in California homeowners insurance, just because she has more platforms and options to choose from than those captive audiences.
Yeah.
Captive agencies, I should say.
Yeah, captive carriers. Yeah.
I forced her to do this because this is actually going to be our last podcast in this studio. We're moving offices, a newer, nicer office, and we're doubling down on an even better podcast studio. So I'm trying to squeeze in as much content as I can before I no longer have access to the space. So we're in Orange County, Southern California. We obviously just came out of the devastating fires in Altadena and the Palisades, right?
Yeah, Pacific Palisades. Yeah.
And we're noticing it. Homeowners insurance was a problem before that with, the cost of the premiums going up and agencies being a lot more stingy with what they're willing to insure and how they're willing to insure it. So these days, we're paying a lot more close attention to when a client gets an accepted offer and is buying a new home. We're pretty darn quickly looking at where they're buying that home because there's high fire areas. Laguna Beach would be an example. Places like Yorba Linda, Trabuco Canyon, Santiago Canyon. There's all kinds of San Clemente. And we had an escrow fallout for somebody buying a condo in Yorba Linda somewhat recently. And the reason the buyer decided to cancel escrow immediately is they got a quote for their condo HO6 policy for coverage. I've been in the industry since 2004, and a typical condo HO6 policy for many, many years was about $500 or $600.
Yeah.
Because it just covers inside the walls of the condominium. The HOA has a master policy that covers the rest. And that policy was almost $10,000 because it was in a fire zone. Of course, the buyer didn't know that as they were making the offer, and of course got the rude awakening. So for all you buyers and realtors out there who may not be paying that close attention, this is more of a wake-up call with all the areas that are high fire risk. Maybe you can speak to that a little bit and what they should be looking at.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I will say they didn't get that quote for me because I will not be quoting a $10,000 condo policy. I promise you that.
Call the insurance broker.
There are options for that. Even Fair Plan, which is made for high fire areas, they offer condo policies too. So there's ways around those higher priced HO6 interior only policies. But with that said, everywhere in California is really at risk of being high fire. You could, any city you think of, we're really lucky here. We've got mountains on one side of us and the beach on the other, right? So you get somewhere in a certain city, you might be too close to those mountains where insurance carriers are gonna say, hey, we consider that a high fire risk. The easiest way to know if you're in a high fire is, if you're on Cal Fire's website.
Cal Fire,
if they're telling you it's a high fire risk, their website's really easy to use. If you go on, you're going to be high fire in regards to insurance.
Okay.
Now, if Cal Fire says you're not in a high fire zone, that does not mean that the insurance company agrees with that.
Yeah.
They get to make up their own fire lines. So that's where the issue lies right now is realtors are out showing clients houses and, they're showing a house on one street that maybe isn't a fire area, and then you go 6 streets up and all of a sudden you're in a fire line.
Yeah.
And that's because insurance companies get to decide it at their discretion.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's kind of the biggest hurdle I would say people are going through when they're taking the insurance into consideration. The easiest way to figure that out is going to your broker or insurance contact and just asking them. I work with realtors and lenders all the time. Like, hey, can we look at this address? Is this high fire? Or honestly, it doesn't even matter if it's high fire at this point. Like I said, almost everywhere, someone's going to find a reason for it to be high fire at a certain point. Hey, what's my insurance going to cost me? Let's not look at like, is it high fire, right? Because everyone's definition is different.
Yeah.
What's the insurance going to cost? And if it's feasible, then great.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to look at.
Cool. Everyone knows their own financial situation better than anyone else. And I guess the message would be mainly for folks who are kind of stretching a little bit.
Yeah.
To buy the home in a certain area that you want. Maybe you want a certain school district or whatever the situation is. Unfortunately, again, a lot of people are dealing with the rude awakening. We already have the inflation problem, high interest rates, high property tax. So this is not, exciting or anything like that, but you can at least get ahead of it. I would just say that pay attention to who you're getting quotes from. What is a captive agency versus what is an insurance broker? Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So let's say you call an Allstate, Farmers, State Farm. Those are all captive, meaning if you call them, they are looking at their product first. They work for themselves. They want, and then when a claim happens, they're working for themselves still. Versus a broker, you call me, I have no affiliation or loyalty to one specific carrier. I'm looking at just what's best for you. I'm learning about you and your family, what makes the most sense. Is it price? Is it coverage? And then we go look at our carriers and that's what we write you with. And then same thing when a claim happens, I have no affiliation or loyalty to that carrier we wrote you with. So I want to make sure you get covered and you are taken care of.
You're more of an advocate,
I don't care how much they're going to have to pay out to you, right? So that's really the biggest difference is its options and its service taken care of. Now, some captive agencies or carriers might have a broker option, but they're required to look at their own product first. So Farmers is a good example. You call Farmers agent. If Farmers won't write it, then they can go and look at broker options.
Yeah.
But if you call them and they're quoting you Farmers, that means they're not going to look at other options for you. So you're paying more money.
Not necessarily the most cost-effective choice.
Yeah, they might write it, but it doesn't mean that it's the best choice for you and your family.
And this is a big change if we're comparing to just 5 years ago, right?
Yeah, huge change. Yeah.
State Farm is what? Is it Farmers or State Farm that's the biggest market shareholder in California?
Yeah, it's State Farm, and State Farm still is not writing new policies in the state of California. So
Even after they got their recent premium increase?
Yeah, they've continually gotten their rate increases approved from the state. They just got another, I believe it was 17% approval. I believe that went through last week.
So they're just still trying to play catch up.
They're trying to play catch up, yeah. And they know the risks and they're not wanting to take it. So that's really what it is at the end of the day.
Yeah.
They're waiting for things to, whether that's internally with the state, there's a lot of moving parts in it, but they're not back yet, and we don't know when that is going to happen. So premiums are going to still keep going up. I think that's the biggest thing to realize. I think some people are like, oh, insurance might go down when it's fixed. No, they're not. You're not all of a sudden get a renewal that's going to be less money. It's not happening. Everything's continuing to increase. So just keep that in mind too.
That seems to be the norm these days.
Yeah, which everything does, right?
Insurance.
No, it's just normal. And and that's the other thing with working with a broker that versus a captive is if we see your renewal, comes in, we reshop every renewal. So 2-3 months before a policy is renewing, we're looking to make sure you're still in the best situation. Cool. A captive carrier isn't going to do that. Yeah. There's no other option.
It is what it is.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Choice is good is what I'm hearing.
Yep.
Condos. How often are we running into issues with the master policy when you're trying to insure an HO6 or whatever?
Yeah, it's actually becoming a little bit less. It was it was almost on every file
Yeah.
that was a condo, it was becoming an issue. But I think HOAs have learned from others, and the past couple years have been rough, but it seems to be like they're all kind of catching up. They're definitely still going to be there, and master policies are always going to be a big component to, insurance and buying a home. So I think there'll always be issues with it, but they're not as bad. And we write the HO6 policy that goes with that to make sure you're properly covered. And if there's something missing from that master policy, depending on the lender you're working with, sometimes an HO6 policy can help cover that missing.
Yeah, if the HOA master doesn't have enough.
Exactly. So there's workarounds for sure. Yeah.
You seem to know what you're talking about.
I try. I try. I do it all day, every day. So.
And you're nice and you're smart. Who would want to talk to you?
I know. It's rough.
I'm just kidding. Obviously, as you can tell, we just showcased why an insurance broker is important. If you want a very intelligent and helpful human being helping you, I would recommend you call Mary Kate, MK.
Thank you.
With Coastal Oak Insurance. She doesn't like that. Sorry. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys. Is there anything else, parting words of advice that we want to talk about before we wrap it up?
No, I think that's great. Thank you for having me on the last
This is your last podcast in the studio. Don't worry. But we'll continue in the new and improved version, and stay tuned for that.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jay.
Thanks.